Hello again, everyone, and welcome back. One of my pet peeves when it comes to YouTube is when some people out there sensationalize everything and they make claims that just aren't true. For example, I've seen some thumbnails that make the claim that a YubiKey will make you completely unhackable. Well, that's not true. There's no such thing as unhackable, but a YubiKey, what it will do is help you add a valuable second factor to your authentication to your accounts, and that's definitely a great thing to have. So what I'm going to do in this video, the Learn Linux TV primer on the YubiKey, is I'm going to go over the YubiKey and tell you all about it. I'll let you know about all the various models that are available and the pros and cons of each. I'll also let you know about some of the features that the YubiKey supports. And then I'll not only show you the process of using your YubiKey to protect your Linux laptop or desktop, I'll also show you the process of protecting your Windows computer as well as your Mac because, well, some Linux users out there use more than one operating system, and I want to make sure that everyone is protected as much as possible. I'll have time codes down below that'll help you get to the section that you're most interested in, and then you can check out that section and learn about how to implement a security key, the YubiKey, to help protect your accounts. Now, before we get into the content at hand, I want to give you guys a quick disclaimer. YubiKey, the makers of YubiKey, did not sponsor this content at all. In fact, they had no idea I was even going to be doing this video. Surprise! Anyway, I use YubiKeys myself, and I wanted to go a little bit deeper in how they work, and I figured if I was going to do that, I may as well, I don't know, create a video about it. I mean, if I'm going to research something anyway, I may as well help you guys learn something as well. So in the next section, what I'm going to do is give you an overview of the YubiKey, why you might want to consider one, and then from there, we'll get into other details about the YubiKey and you'll see other scenarios of using a YubiKey. It's going to be a fun video, so let's get started. Alright, so in this section, what I'm going to do is talk to you guys about what a YubiKey is and why you might want to consider using one. Now, let's get the name out of the way. YubiKey, really? What's next? A yabba dabba doo key? Anyway, YubiKeys are really awesome, and like I mentioned in the intro, I've been using them for a while. So I wanted to make this video to help you guys understand the various quirks and feature set of the YubiKey. But also, it could be a little confusing as far as which one to buy. There's several different models. So which one do you go with? Well, let's go ahead and explore that. So, what's a YubiKey? YubiKeys are a security product developed by YubiKey, and the YubiKey line itself is the flagship product of that company. They also make other solutions that are outside the scope of this video, but the YubiKey is what the company is best known for. With the YubiKey, you can add a second factor to a service that you might authenticate to. For example, maybe your Twitter account, or your computer, even your server. But the main purpose of a YubiKey is to provide a valuable second factor to an important account so that way you could better secure it. When implemented, you'll log into the account as normal, and then the service will instruct you to press the button on your YubiKey. Now in the intro, I mentioned that some people out there just make these bold claims that YubiKeys will make your accounts 100% unhackable. Well, anyone that knows security, they know that there's no such thing as 100% unhackable. But the main point is that we should adjust our expectations accordingly, as nothing in the IT industry is ever 100%. However, the extra security that using a YubiKey provides is absolutely worth the effort. So what features are provided by YubiKeys? What I'm going to do right now is talk about the various features that are provided, which will definitely help with the next section when we talk about the difference between individual models. And each model supports different features, so it's really important to understand what the potential features are. First of all, regardless of which YubiKey you purchase, you'll have access to second factor authentication. That's what the YubiKey does. A YubiKey is a physical second factor device. So regardless of which one you buy, that box is always checked. Even if you purchase the cheapest model available, it doesn't matter. With that in mind, let's go over some of the various features that the platform provides. First, let's talk about FIDO. FIDO U2F is supported by every YubiKey model available. FIDO itself stands for Fast Identity Online, and U2F stands for Universal Second Factor. This technology was originally developed by YubiKey themselves while working alongside Google. In short summary, FIDO U2F is a universal standard for second factor authentication, and every YubiKey model supports this. Next, there's FIDO2. FIDO2 is what YubiKey refers to as the passwordless evolution of FIDO-U2F. And, just like it sounds, the idea behind FIDO2 is to offer a replacement for passwords entirely. I mean, passwords are horrible, no one likes them, and personally, I'm surprised we don't have a better method of authentication nowadays. Well, actually, we do. FIDO2 is that better method that can potentially replace passwords. And the only reason why I say potentially is because no matter how good a solution is, it has to be implemented in order to be useful. But anyway, every model of YubiKey supports FIDO2, so we're good to go on that. The next feature that I'm going to discuss is NFC, or Near Field Communication. For the most part, YubiKeys are USB devices that you plug into a USB port, and they also have versions available with Lightning and USB-C connectors as well. With NFC, it doesn't matter if your device has a USB port at all. If your device supports NFC, then you can use the NFC feature with your YubiKey. Of course, whether or not you can utilize NFC is determined by the specific YubiKey model that you're using. Not all of them support this. In addition, some YubiKeys offer biometric protection as well, meaning that your fingerprint can unlock your key. Only one YubiKey model supports this though, which we'll go over in the next section. Continuing, I want to make sure that I mention OTP, or one-time password. A one-time password is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's a password that can only be used a single time, literally. Once you use a one-time password, you can't reuse it. A one-time password is used in combination with your username and password in order to gain access to an account which utilizes OTP. In practice, the way that this typically plays out is that you'll enter your username and password as normal, and then your one-time password to finish the login process. OTP uses a counter that increments by 1 every time you log into a service, and to log in a second time, you'll need a new one-time password, and the counter has to be at least 1 digit higher than the previous one. This way, if someone tries to execute a replay attack against you, they won't be successful because they'd be replaying a password that was already used. Next, let's talk about time-based one-time passwords, or TOTP. It's another term that I'd like to bring up. TOTP is very similar to a one-time password, but the actual password changes regularly throughout the day based on time. Typically, the one-time password that you get from TOTP will change automatically every 30 seconds. If you've ever used Google Authenticator or a similar solution such as Authy, then you've already seen TOTP in action. Now, there's other features that YubiKeys provide as well, but the features that I've mentioned, I consider those to be the most important, and I don't want to overwhelm you with a bunch of information that you may or may not use. Let's switch gears right now and talk about which models are available and the differences between each. So now that we know what a YubiKey is and some of the features that they provide, let's talk about the individual models so that way you know which one you should go with. And there's quite a few to choose from. And implementing a YubiKey is actually not difficult at all. You'll be surprised at how easy they are to get started with. However, as easy as they are to set up, it can be a bit confusing when it comes to which one to buy. Part of the reason why there's many variations of the YubiKey is due to the fact that each device you might own will have different ports. Perhaps you have a laptop with a USB Type-A port, a phone with USB Type-C, perhaps you have an iPhone that only has a Lightning connector, or maybe you want to use NFC and not be forced to plug in anything at all. This is the first thing to consider. Take a look at each device you want to use a YubiKey with and which ports are available on those devices. After that, it's just a matter of choosing the right YubiKey. So what I'll do right now is go over the differences between the various models. Below in the description, you'll find a product matrix that gives you a quick overview, and that'll give you all the information about which model does what. But what I'm going to do is go over those different models right now. Now, when it comes to which models are available, the different YubiKeys generally fall into one of 4 main categories. First, we have the generically named Security Key series. Then we have the YubiKey 5 series. We also have the YubiKey Bio, and finally, the YubiHSM. Now, we're not actually going to go over the YubiHSM in this video, so what we're going to do is stick to the first 3 categories. Let's start first with the Security Key series. The Security Key is the least expensive model that YubiKey makes available, and it starts at just $25 US. However, with the lower price comes a trade-off. The Security Key lacks OTP, NFC, and they also lack a fingerprint reader as well. But if all you need is U2F, then, well, it's the least expensive way to get started. The next category is the YubiKey 5 series. These keys start at a higher price point and give you access to additional features. I counted like 6 variations of the YubiKey 5 series, but for the most part, the main difference between the keys in this category is the port that they use to connect to your device. Variations exist for USB Type A and C, just like the security key category, but there's also versions with Lightning connectors, as well as NFC, which enables you to use the key without physically connecting anything at all. However, even with the expanded feature set of the 5 series, none of the keys in this category have a fingerprint reader. The third category of the YubiKey is the YubiKey Bio. As the name would imply, the Bio gives you access to biometric security, and there's a fingerprint reader built in. The Bio keys actually have fewer features than the 5 series, and even with a shorter feature set, they start at the highest price point at around $80 US. Having fewer features but starting at a higher price point might seem strange, and actually it kind of is. But the focus of the Bio series is the fingerprint reader, and it has a more specific target audience. Essentially, these are typically keys that you would not actually carry around with you, but instead attach to a desktop in a situation where you might want to add a biometric layer to your secured services. The focus on desktop users also means that there's no version of the Bio available with a Lightning connector. Finally, the fourth category is the YubiHSM. These are intended for infrastructure-related use cases such as servers, and I don't have any HSM keys in my possession, so I won't be going over these today. If Yubico wants to send me one though, I might be able to take a look at them in a future video. If you'd like to utilize the YubiKey to act as a second factor for logging into Windows or macOS, then there's some additional considerations. The YubiKey Security Series, Bio Series, and YubiHSM are not supported. You'll need to purchase a YubiKey from within the YubiKey 5 series only. So if that's your use case, then that narrows down your selection quite a bit. If you plan on using a YubiKey with Linux, then in that case, the YubiKey Bio is actually supported. Windows and macOS, however, they don't support the Bio for authentication, but desktop Linux does. It is what it is. Overall, take a look at the product matrix and also consider the devices that you intend to use with your YubiKey, and the available ports on those devices will help you narrow down your purchase. In order to narrow down your selection even further, be sure to take a look at the Yubico support catalog, which will also be linked below. This catalog contains a search box that you can use to identify the services that are supported. So you'll definitely want to make sure that you verify that the accounts you use actually support YubiKeys before you purchase one. Also, consider buying a second YubiKey. This is very important actually. Reason being, if you lose your YubiKey, you will also lose access to all the accounts that you've used with that YubiKey. Your spare key would not be one that you'd carry around with you, but you just put it in a locked box or a safety deposit box. Anyway, just keep it safe. Once you have a YubiKey in your possession, how do you set it up? In the intro, I mentioned that you can use a YubiKey with your online accounts, as well as your computers and servers. In the next section, what I'm going to do is outline the process of using a YubiKey with one or more of your online accounts. And this is probably what most of you will be looking for, so I'll see you over in that section. YubiKeys can be used for many different things. There's all kinds of really cool use cases for YubiKeys. You can secure online accounts or even a computer operating system. In fact, you can even secure SSH as well, all of which we will be going over in this video. But in this section, what I'm going to do is talk about the process of using a YubiKey to secure one or more of your online accounts. Now, the first thing for you to do is find out whether or not your online account, whatever it is that you want to secure, actually supports the YubiKey. You can go to the YubiKey support site. I'll have a link down below that'll help you understand whether or not a particular service is compatible with the YubiKey. If it is, then you just go into the options for that particular service and follow the prompts to add your YubiKey. I would love to show you a process that works on everything as I normally do, but this process is actually going to be different from one service to the next, so I can't give you a one tutorial to fit all. Now, another thing that I want to talk about in this section is how much security a YubiKey will actually add to one of your accounts. And honestly, that depends on the account itself. Now, in the intro, I was talking about how some people make the claim that YubiKeys will make your accounts hack-proof. They might, kind of, but again, there's no such thing as 100% security. But sometimes it's a little worse than that. Imagine this. You have an account and you use your YubiKey to access that account. You have that set up, it's working, and then you lose your YubiKey. If a site is doing it right, if they're implementing this right, then unfortunately, you'll lose access to that account. There should be no backdoor, no other way in, and that's it. And that's why everyone recommends that you have at least 2 YubiKeys so you have your primary as well as your backup. But sometimes, some sites out there, they might actually have a link where you click, I don't know, something like I forgot my YubiKey or I lost access to my YubiKey, and then it sends you a link to your email that you could click on to reset your password and then still get in. At that point, I mean, how much is a YubiKey actually protecting you? Because if there's a backdoor like that, then in my opinion, it's pretty much the same as not having a YubiKey at all. And that's one of the biggest reasons why a YubiKey is not going to make you completely hack-proof, because some sites out there, well, they don't really do it right. For the most part though, a YubiKey should actually add a lot of security. So what you do is you just sign into one of your supported accounts, go into the settings, find an option to add a security key, and if it supports the YubiKey, you should have the option to do so right there in that service. Now, what about your computer? What we're going to do in the next few sections is talk about several different operating systems, Linux, macOS, and Windows on the desktop, and we're going to take a look at the process of using a YubiKey to protect your authentication on those operating systems. So I'll meet you over in one of those other sections, and we'll continue. In the previous section, I went over the process of setting up your YubiKey for logging into a Windows computer, and in this section, I'm going to show you the process of setting up your YubiKey for authentication with macOS. Now, in order for this to work, you will specifically need a YubiKey within the 5 series. The Security Key series and the BIOS series keys are not compatible with securing macOS logon. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So what I'm going to do is open up a web browser. And here we're going to go to yubico.com. And then we'll go to support, and then downloads. And we will scroll down. And what we'll want to do is install the YubiKey manager. So we'll click on downloads for that. Let's go ahead and download it. macOS download. And we can see the download process has begun, and actually it's already finished. So if I open that up, we have the package right here. So I'll click on it. We shouldn't need this browser window anymore. And then we'll go through the process of installing it. Now, in my case, the YubiKey manager is already installed, so there's nothing that I need to do here. I should be good to go. But if you haven't installed it yet on your end, just go through the process right here, click continue, go through the prompts, and you should be good to go. Once you have it installed, you should be able to go to the applications, and I'll just start typing YubiKey, and we have it right here, so I'll click on it. And here's the YubiKey manager in all its glory. As it's instructing me to do right now, it's asking me to insert my YubiKey, so I will do that. And as you can see, it's already detected it. Now, before I actually pair the YubiKey to my user account, there's a couple of best practice things that we should do. So we'll go to Applications and then PIV. And the first thing we're going to do is click on Pin Management. And the default pin for the YubiKey is 123456, so we'll definitely want to change that. So we'll click Change Pin, and I'll click Use Default because I haven't changed it from its default just yet. And what I'll do is add the new pin right here. And then down here, I will confirm it. And we should be good to go to change the pin. And that's done. Next, what we're going to do is change the pin unlock code. And that's the option right here for change PUC. And if you haven't ever set this before, you can click Use Default, which is similar to the first one. It's 1 through 8 sequentially right there. So we definitely want to change that. So what we'll do is add a new code right here. And I'll do it again. And we should be good to go. And then the final thing we'll do for the setup process is change our management key. So I've never done this before, so I could safely use the default. And I'll check this box right here, and what that's going to do is protect the management key with a PIN number. That's definitely a good idea. And rather than typing my own right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate a new one. And there it is. So far, so good. So I'll click Finish. And then I'll type in the PIN number. So right now our YubiKey is set up and ready to go. So now what we could do is set up our user account to use the YubiKey for second factor authentication. So the next thing we'll do is click on Applications and again, PIV. And we have an option here to set it up with macOS. Let's do that. We'll click Set up for macOS. And now it's telling me to remove and reinsert the YubiKey. So that's exactly what I'll do. So I removed it and I will now reinsert it. Now what's supposed to happen actually is the pairing menu is supposed to come up automatically. I've tried a couple of YubiKeys and that doesn't actually happen. So per the documentation, there's a command that we could run to bring up the GUI dialog that we're supposed to see anyway. So we'll type sc_off, pairing _UI, and then -F. Let's see what happens. And here it is. So this is the screen that's supposed to appear anyway. For some reason it didn't. So what I'll do is click pair. And I just use Touch ID to answer the password prompt there, and I will type in the PIN number. And click OK. Next, what it wants me to do is enter the password for my user account, which I'll do right now. And that should be it. And to test it out, what we could do is lock the screen and unlock it. So that way we can make sure that the YubiKey is recognized. And on Mac, we can hold Control, Command, and press Q. And that's going to lock the screen. Now notice right here, it's asking for the PIN number. So I'll type that in. And let's see if it works. And it did. So I was able to unlock my Mac with the YubiKey. How cool is that? Now, I will have a link in the description down below to the official documentation from YubiKey, and definitely check out that article if you want to make the YubiKey a hard requirement for authentication. But as you just saw, we were able to pair the YubiKey with macOS. It works just fine, so we're good to go. In this section, I'm going to show you the process of setting up YubiKey login for Windows, and this is going to enable you to protect your local Windows user account with your YubiKey. The process that I'm going to outline here is specifically for local Windows accounts. Active Directory integration is not something that I'm covering in this video. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that as soon as we enable our YubiKey for our Windows user account, a few of the Windows security features are going to be a bit different. For example, your username will not be automatically filled in anymore at the login screen if that's something that you had set up. And not only that, you will also lose access to password hints and you won't be able to reset your password either. So just keep that in mind before you continue. Also, while it's not required, full disk encryption is highly recommended. Without full disk encryption in Windows, it's actually possible for someone to work around the requirement for your YubiKey if they boot into safe mode. Setting up full disk encryption in Windows is beyond the scope of this channel, but it is recommended. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. First of all, you're going to need your YubiKey, but specifically your YubiKey must be a model within the YubiKey 5 series. At this time, you're not able to use the YubiKey security key or the YubiKey bio for this purpose. YubiKey Series 4 is listed as compatible as well, but I only have 5 series keys in my possession, so that's what I'm going to be going over. To show the process, I'm going to follow the official documentation from the YubiKey support site. I will have a link to the article listed below in the description, and in addition, I'll also have a link below to the YubiKey login app that's required for this to work. Now, before we actually go ahead and continue, we should know what our Windows username actually is. If you're sure that you know what it is, then you can skip this step. But you want to make sure that you know what your username is, because after you install this, like I mentioned, it's not going to actually have your username auto-completed. You will need to type it in. And I'm not talking about the first and last name that displays. There's a name field and a username field. We need to know what the username is. So I'll click on the Files menu right here. And I'll click inside the address bar and I will go to C:\users. And this folder right here is my user folder. That's my username. So in my case, the username is just my first name. That should be all you need to know for this step. Let's go ahead and download the YubiKey login app and get that installed. So what I'll do is open up a web browser. And what we're going to do is go to yubiko.com/products and then computer-login-tools, or you could just click the link in the description. And here we have the page. So what I'll do is scroll down. And right here, we have a link to download YubiKey login for Windows, the 64-bit version. And 64-bit Windows is the majority nowadays, so that's the one that I recommend you go with. So more than likely, this is going to be the one that you want right here. So I'll go ahead and download it. And it's already done. It's actually not a big file, it's only 5.1 megabytes. So the download didn't take any time at all. Let's go ahead and open the folder that it was downloaded into, and here we have it. All right, so let's go ahead and close this, and we will install YubiKey login. We'll accept the agreement. Shouldn't need this window anymore either. So I'm going to keep the defaults whenever possible here, and let's install it. And it's already done. That was a very fast installation. It's recommended to reboot your system after you install this, so I will say yes. Let's go ahead and reboot. And I'll be back as soon as the reboot process is finished. All right, now we're booting back up, almost there. And here we are. So notice here that the login screen has already changed. Now, at this point, I have yet to pair a YubiKey to my account at all. So what I'm going to do right now is just type in the username to my installation here, and then I'll type in my password, and that should be all I need to do. And I will ignore this really annoying screen right here. Like, I don't even know why this came up again. But anyway, I'll just click remind me later. Hopefully that won't come up for you. But now I'm logged back into my computer. And if we go to all apps, we have a YubiKey folder right here. And if I scroll down again, we have the login configuration option right here. So I'll click on that, and then I'll say yes, and let's go through the process. And right now, I'm just going to leave it at the default of slot 2 for this option up here. Now, if you've configured something important to use slot 2, then you definitely want to make sure that you choose a different slot. But again, I'll just leave this at the default. And then I'll click next. And then it's asking me which username I'd like to use. Well, I only have this one anyway, so I'll select that one. And now it wants me to insert my YubiKey, which I have right here, so let's do it. And right here it tells me that the YubiKey has been detected. It gives me my serial number. It tells me that slot 1 has been configured, slot 2 has not been configured. So it should use slot 2 and set up the YubiKey right there. So let's go ahead and click on next. So I'll remove it. Then it wants me to reinsert it. And so far, so good. So we have this backup code right here. I'm going to save this. I'll save it into my documents directory. You definitely want to make sure that you back this up to somewhere that's outside of your computer. So I'll click next. And it looks like we're good to go. So what I'm going to do is log out. So I'll click right here. Let's log out. And now I'm back to the login screen. So let's attempt to log in. And just like before, I will enter my username and password. And this is a good sign right here because I didn't insert my YubiKey yet. So let's try again with the YubiKey inserted. I'll insert it right now. And there we go. I tested login without the YubiKey and it didn't work as you would expect. Then I inserted the YubiKey and as you can see, I was able to log in. So there you go. That was the process of setting up the YubiKey for use within Windows. We're all set. All right, so let's go ahead and see the process of setting up a desktop or laptop installation of Linux to use a YubiKey for authentication. Now, specifically, I'm running Pop! OS on my end, but Pop! OS is based on Ubuntu, so if you are running on Ubuntu, then the instructions should be the exact same. If you're running on something like Debian or something based on Debian, these instructions should work fine there as well. If you are using a different distribution, then all you really need is the PAM module for Universal Second Factor. So the first step is to get that installed. So what I'll do is run sudo apt update. And then next what I'll do is run sudo apt install and then libpam -u2f, just like that. And I will have all of these commands in the blog article for this video. Check the description down below if you want to copy and paste the commands that I'm running today. Anyway, I'll press enter. I'll press enter again to confirm that I do indeed want to install that package. You might see a password prompt. If you do, just go ahead and type that in. Anyway, I'll press enter. And now we have that installed. Next, what we're going to do is make a new directory. We're going to make it in our home directory, so I'll use a tilde, the shorthand for home. Then in the .config directory, what we want to do is create a YubiKey directory. And unlike most folders in Linux, the Y is capital, the first letter is capital. So just go ahead and enter this in exactly as I have it. I'll press enter. And then next what we're going to do is associate the YubiKey. So what I'll do is run pam u2f cfg greater than, and we'll type in the path. And the file name, we will call it u2f_keys. I'll press enter. And it's telling me that my YubiKey is not inserted. Well, that's actually true. So what I'll do is insert it right now. And now it found it. Now the light on my YubiKey is blinking. So what I'll do is press it. And we should be all set. Another thing that I'm going to do is enable the YubiKey for use with sudo. That's the next thing that we want to configure. So what I'll do is run sudo and then nano/etc/pam.d/sudo. So we're going to find this line right here, include common auth. We'll go to the end of that line and press enter. And we're going to add a new line right here, auth, then required pam_u2f.so. Let's save the file. And I'm not actually going to exit the text editor right now. I'm going to leave that open. And what I'll do is open up a new tab. And then what I'll do is run any command that requires sudo. An easy one is sudo apt update. So I'll type in the password. And notice how it's just like blinking right here. It's not asking me for anything, but it's also not continuing. Well, my YubiKey light is blinking, so I'll press it. And notice how it waited for the YubiKey before it continued. That means it's actually working. So the next thing that I'm going to do is make it so that when I log into my computer itself, it's going to require the YubiKey. This is for distributions that use GDM as the login manager, which is basically most, if not all, of the GNOME distributions, of which Pop! OS is one, as well as Ubuntu. So what we're going to do is run sudo and then nano/etc/pam.d. And then the file we want to edit is gdm-password, just like that. So I'll press enter. And then I'll type in my super secret password. And then I'll touch the YubiKey. And we're in the file. Now what we're going to do is look for this line right here where it shows include common auth. So I've already found it. Then after that, I'll press enter and add a new line. And the line that I want to add is auth and then required pam_u2f.so. Control O and then enter to save the file, and then Control X to exit out. So what I'm going to do right now is log out, and then when I log in, it should prompt me for the YubiKey, so let's see what happens. All right, so what I'll do is enter in my password right here. And it's not actually prompting me verbally for the YubiKey, but the YubiKey light is blinking, which means that it wants me to press it. So I'll do that right now. And it worked. We have successfully set up authentication with our Linux laptop or desktop. As you can see, it worked just fine. Now, one workaround that someone might be able to utilize is that if they have physical access to my machine, they might be able to use a TTY in order to get into the system. And this is a TTY login right here. I just held Control-Alt and pressed F4, and I'm on a TTY login. Now, TTYs are awesome. You can effectively use them as additional terminals. And then you can return to your GUI by holding Control and Alt and pressing F2. Sometimes it could be a different F key depending on your distribution. But as you can see, I am back to my GUI mode right here. But what I want to do is protect the TTY login, so that one requires the YubiKey as well. Let's go ahead and do it. Yet another text file to edit. We're going to edit /etc pam.d/login. And what we're going to do is look for the line that has common auth inside of it, so I'll just scroll down until I see it. And here it is. So directly underneath this line, what we want to do is add another line. Specifically, we'll type AUTH and then required, and then pam_u2f.so. Let's save the file, and we'll exit out. And let's go ahead and give it a try. I'm going to switch over to a TTY, and I'll attempt to log in, and if it works, my YubiKey should be required. And here I am on TTY4, so I'll type in my username, and then my password. And my YubiKey is blinking, so I'll press the button. And now I'm logged in. So as you can see here, I was able to protect my TTY login with my YubiKey as well, and it's working just fine. I'll hold Control and Alt and press F2 to go back to my graphical mode. And I'm back to my normal session. So at least at this point, I don't have to worry about somebody using a TTY to bypass my YubiKey, and that's a good protection to have in place. So for the purpose of protecting the TTY login, we're all set on that. In the next section, what I'm going to do is show you how to set this up for SSH login as well. You can do that on your laptop if you actually SSH into your laptop. But for the most part, this is for those of you that want to secure your Linux servers, which is exactly what we're going to do in the next section. So in this section, what we're going to do is work through the process of securing SSH with our YubiKey. Now, the method that I'm going to be going over in this section actually requires FIDO2. Now, if your YubiKey doesn't have FIDO2 support, then you will not be able to use this method. You will need to use the alternate method instead. Again, I have time codes down below that you could use to get right to the section that you need. And earlier in the video, I went over which YubiKey model supports which feature, so you should know by now which features your YubiKey supports. But you will need FIDO2 support to continue with this method, and this method is actually preferred. So if you do have FIDO2 support, then I recommend that you use this method. If you don't have FIDO2 support, then you could go to the alternate method and use that instead. Now, before we set this up though, I want to give a special shout out to Tom Lawrence, because without him, I wouldn't even know that this method exists. He actually created a video that goes over this method in probably greater detail than I'm going to go over in this section. I'm going to show you how to set it up, but I do recommend you check out his video. I'll leave a card for his video right about here, and you could click that link to go over to his video and check that out. Tell him I sent you. So thanks to Tom for letting me know about this method. Let's take a look. So let's get the process started and set up our computer to authenticate to our remote server via SSH and make the YubiKey required for that. Now, notice that I'm not connected to a remote server at this time. As you can see, I'm on my studio laptop, my local computer, because we need to start this process from our local computer. What we'll do is generate a key right here, and then we'll copy that key over to the server. But first, we need a special package installed in order for this to work. So what I'll do is run sudo apt update. I want to make sure that my package sources are up to date, and this should go by pretty quickly. In fact, it's already done. And next, I'll run sudo apt install, and what we want to do is install a special package, and the package that we want to install is libfido2-dev. I'll press enter again, and now we have that installed. The package size was pretty small, so it didn't take all that much time to complete. And there's the command that I copied from Tom's site. I'll press enter. And now the YubiKey is actually blinking. I'll press the button. And then it's giving me a default path right here. So if I don't give it a custom path, this is actually where it's going to save this particular key to, and that's okay with me. I'll just press enter. And the passphrase, I'll leave blank. I do recommend that you do create a passphrase though. I'll just press enter in my case, since this is just a quick tutorial. If you did enter a passphrase, it would ask you for that passphrase to unlock the key, but anyway, I'll press enter again, and we have the key. So what we could do right now is go ahead and proceed and copy this key over to the server. So there's the command that I pasted in. And then what I'll do is paste in the IP address to the server that I want to protect with this key. So I will paste that right here. And there it is. So I'll press enter. And now it's asking me for my password. This is the password for SSH to the remote server. Not the local password, but the remote password. I'll type that in and press enter. Now it's telling me that the number of keys that were added is 1. So if this works, then I should be able to use the YubiKey to log into the server. Let's find out. So now I'll just use SSH and then the IP address. I'm not including the username here because that's the same on both ends. I'll just press enter. And my YubiKey is actually blinking right now. It's not asking me for the password. It wants me to press the button on the YubiKey. So I'll do that right now. And I'm logged in. It actually works. So what I recommend that we do right now is disable password authentication. And to do that, I will run sudo and then nano etc ssh. We're going to edit sshd_config. I'll type in my super secret password and I'll press enter. So what we'll do is we will scroll down here and we are looking for password authentication. See if we can find it. Here it is. Password authentication, yes. We're going to set that equal to no. So I'll save the file, close out, and let's restart SSH. Now notice that I'm connected to the server via SSH and I've restarted SSH. This will not drop you out. And the reason for that is because if you have a connection via SSH and restart SSH, the restarting of SSH doesn't disrupt currently connected sessions. So we still have our session. Now what we want to do is open another tab. And we're going to leave the original terminal open just in case we made a mistake. That way we can use the existing connection to actually fix the problem. But what I should be able to do is run SSH, type the IP address. It should actually work just the same as you just saw it. I'll press enter. And my YubiKey is blinking. And I'll press the button. And check that out. I am actually logged into the server, as you can see right here. For more information, definitely check out Tom's video. So thanks to him for letting me know about this method right here. I really appreciate that. Also subscribe to his channel if you haven't already done so. He has some really awesome content over there at Lawrence Systems. But as far as we're concerned for this particular section, we have successfully set up the YubiKey for use with SSH. Alright, so in this section, what we're going to do is set up our Linux server to use the YubiKey for authentication. Specifically, what we're going to do is protect SSH login. I'm going to show you the process on Ubuntu right now, but this process should also work on Debian as well. I'll leave a link down below to a blog article that'll have more information there if you want to use a different distribution. But what we're going to do is install this special YubiKey repository. And you could prefix that command with sudo if you are not logged in as root like I am. But since I am logged in as root, I won't need that. What I'm going to run is add-apt and then repository. And the repository that I want to add is ppa:, then yubico/stable. I'll press enter to confirm that I do indeed want to add this repository. And it's refreshing the package sources. It's doing that automatically, which is great. And since it automatically updated my package sources, I won't need to run sudo apt update, which would have been the next command. But if yours didn't automatically update, then you can run that manually by, well, running sudo apt update. Next, what we'll want to do is run sudo apt install, and the package that we're going to install is libpam-yubico. So I'll press enter. And to continue, what we'll need to do is edit a special file. So I'll use nano. Again, use sudo if you need to. And what we're going to do is edit /etc/ssh. And the file that we want to create inside that directory is authorized_YubiKeys. Now what we're going to do in this file is add one line for every user that we want to allow access via SSH. In my case, this is the only user right here that I have on the server. So what I'm going to do is just type J, that's the username for me, and then colon. And then next what I'm going to do is press the YubiKey button. And notice how it added all of this gibberish right here. Well, we don't want the entire thing. So what we're going to do is ensure that we have only the first 12 characters. So we'll just count from the first character all the way to the right. And then when we hit 12, we'll delete everything after that. So just delete everything I don't need right here. And then I'll save the file. I'll hold Control and press O and then press Enter. And then I'll press Control X to exit out of the text editor. Well, let's take a quick detour. And what I'm going to do is show you how to grab an API key. And the API key is what you'll use to pair your YubiKey with your server. And what we'll do is go to HTTPS. And what I'll do is record this URL in the blog post for this article. Again, check the description. But we want to navigate to upgrade.yubico.com/get API key, just like that. So what we're going to do is add an IP address right here. So I'll type in mine. I'm going to press the YubiKey button right here. And then I'll click the box that says that I've read and agreed to these terms, and I'll click Get API Key. And now that I have my API key, I could go ahead and finish the configuration. And I'll edit another file. This time it's going to be /etc/pam.d, then sshd. I'll press enter. And what we're going to do is add a new line to this file, and it must be the very first thing in this file, or at least the first thing that isn't commented out. We'll type auth required pam_yubico.so id equals, and we're going to set the ID equal to the client ID, which is this one right here. So I'll just copy that. I'll paste it right here. And then we'll type in key equals. And next we need the secret key, which we have right here. And you should never show this key to the public ever. So just make sure that this never leaks out. That should go without saying. I just want to make sure. Anyway, we'll paste it right here. And then we'll type auth file. We'll set that equal to /etc/authorized_YubiKeys. Let's save the file, Control O and then Enter, and Control X to exit out. So we shouldn't need this anymore. I'll just minimize that. And then next, we're going to edit another file. And that's going to be etc sshd_config. We're going to look for the challenge response line, so I'll just scroll down until I see it. And here it is. Challenge response authentication is currently set to no. So what we're going to do, as you could probably guess, we're going to change that to yes. And then we're going to look for use PAM, and I'll just do Control W to search. And here it is. We want to make sure that it's set to yes, and it is. So we'll save the file, Control O and Enter, and then Control X to exit out. Next, let's restart SSH. Now what we're going to do is we're going to leave this window open and open a new window. And the reason for that is if we made a mistake, we might get locked out of the server. But I'm already logged into the server in this window, so if anything went wrong, if I test it and it doesn't work, then I still have a connection open that I can use to fix the problem. So what I'll do is open a new tab, and what I'll do is log in with my user account. So I'll just type SSH, and then there's the IP address of the server that I'm working with today. I'll press enter. And it's actually asking me to press the button for the YubiKey, so I'll do that right now. And now I'll type in the password. And as you can see, it works. I was able to log in via the YubiKey, as you can see here. And from this point forward, I have additional security on my SSH account, which is awesome. And that also means that I no longer need to keep my other terminal window open. I still have this one open again if I made a mistake, and everything is working for me. If you did make a mistake, then you could use this particular terminal window to fix that mistake, then open a new tab or a new terminal, and then you could use that terminal to test it out and make sure the problem's fixed. But for me, it looks like everything worked out just fine, so I'm good to go. So as you can see, YubiKeys are awesome. It's my preferred security key, and in this video, I've gone over as much as I can. And if there's anything else that I should go over, I'll consider doing so in another video. Now, if there is something else that you'd like me to cover on this channel, let me know in the comments down below. If this video helped you out, please click that like button, because that lets YouTube know that other people should benefit from this knowledge as well. Make sure you also subscribe to Learn Linux TV in addition, because I have some awesome content coming, if I do say so myself, very soon. And I can't wait for you guys to see that, so definitely subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.